Welcome to the SCLS podcast series, powered by Fortinus Events. SCLS is a global platform where logistics, procurement, and fulfillment leaders unite to shape the future of supply chain excellence. Join our conversations with industry pioneers and disruptors as they reveal the strategies and innovations moving the world forward.
Welcome to the Fortinus Events Global Podcast Series, where we connect with visionary leaders shaping a smarter, more sustainable world. I'm your host, Rashika, and in each episode, we explore the ideas, decisions, and innovations that are transforming our future. Today's episode features a powerhouse in the Philippine industry, manufacturing. So we are joined today by the Senior Vice President of Supply Chain at Holcim Philippines, one of the country's leading building solutions provider. Welcome to the show, Saeed. Excited to have you here.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Thank you. So, with decades of experience in operation and supply chain strategy, Said is here to share insights on navigating one of the most capital-intensive and complex industries, which is cement, in a market as dynamic as the Philippines. So, everyone, let's just dive in. Okay.
Hello there. My name is Saeed Ande. I am the Senior Vice President Supply Chain for Holcim Philippines. How did I get here? I started working out from my professional career, started in 2004, immediately after my university education in Nigeria. Ahmadu Bello University, Nigeria to be precise. I mean, you can say I'm one of the ones who didn't really have any break in between schooling and career because I started working the next day after my university submission of my thesis, and I was working. So I started as an intern in Procter& Gamble in Nigeria, and then went through the ranks. I fully joined the company as a full staff in 2006. I moved through being from the demand planning manager, grew through to integrated planning, which combines a bit of demand and supply planning. And I started managing a team right around 2007, 2008, which again began my journey in developing people. Then I did a bit at the plant just to ensure that I was increasing my scope of work, understanding production planning, material planning, plant planning generally. After which I took an assignment in Europe, Poland to be precise, for a couple of months. I mean, interesting because I was both learning and trying to also execute on projects. And I was moving quite around. So I had trainings in Greece, in Ukraine, back in the days in Turkey and other European countries. Then I came back to Nigeria and fully took on the role of fiscal distribution manager for West Africa. It was more about logistics distribution as well as customer service. And then I grew from there to become the one country logistics director for Procter& Gamble before I left in 2017. And then I moved, a short stint with United Nations, WFP, and then a short stint with Beer Stuff Consulting for them before I moved to Holcim. Holcim, I moved to Lafarge Africa, who is a subsidiary of Holcim globally in Nigeria. I started working with the group, moving through different countries on something we call logistics excellence, driving supply chain excellence across multiple countries in Middle East Africa, like Algeria, South Africa, Zambia, Morocco, Uganda, Kenya, and finally in Nigeria before I then localized in my home country again, taking on the role of logistics operations director around 2020 during the COVID period. And then my CEO, about 1.5 years later, called me to take on the role of the procurement director. For the business need, I took on that role, did it for a couple of years, and in 2025, January this year, I moved to the Philippines now as the Senior Vice President Supply Chain for Holcim, located here in the Philippines. So this has been my journey so far.
I understand. What a great and long journey for you, Said.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so I will move on to the second question. Cement manufacturing is notoriously infrastructure heavy. Then, how has operating in the Philippine market influenced your approach to supply chain strategy?
I mean, for me, the Philippine market has been an eye opener in terms of, when you talk about adaptability, decentralization, and stakeholder integration. In the sense that if you look at other continental markets, you see that what most supply chain organization will try to do is to have large central hub dominating where you can call on the economics of scale to drive value. In the Philippines, it's a bit different. It requires a multi-node approach, strategically positioning your distribution channels, be it your terminals or your warehouses or even your bagging stations, in localized setup, supply chain design setup, such that interruptions or strikes or other issues is not going to impact on your responsiveness. In the Philippines, you have to respond. So localization is one key thing. The other is agility. So talking about economies of scale, for me in the Philippines, it's more about agility over scale. So, how are you able to respond very quick?
Mm.
How are you able to be resilient in the face of regional disruptions? Because to stay competitive, then speed to market matters. So, agility is key. The third is sustainability and community integration. So now sustainability is no longer, what you need to do, but it's something that you have to do to survive. You have to do sustainable, value driven to ensure that you are also using sustainability, not just, for your ESG, but also to bring down supply chain costs generally. And I mean, partner with the community such that, you're delivering, cutting off mileage in your delivery, but the final step of delivery, the last mile, is being done with partnership with your customers or other partners that you operate with. And the final that I will say, from what I've seen in the Philippines, is how now we have to be more digital
Mhm.
and using digitalization to drive visibility in the supply chain. So for me, I mean, personal story is how I've had to, within the last 5 months that I've been here, set up a logic control center where I have full visibility on what's going on, whether with my trucks or with my vessels. I know what's happening and I'm able to drive efficiency and optimize the assets such that I bring win win, not just for myself in Holcim, but also for my partners outside of Holcim.
Mm.
So, this is the way I will see it.
So there are three ways for it, like localization, agility, and also the sustainability, right? Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great insight for that. Okay, move on to the next question. Now let's talk about challenges. What are some of the most pressing issues facing supply chain professionals in the Philippines today, particularly within the manufacturing sector?
I mean, I know that most supply chain, there is no supply chain in the world that does not have its own
Mm-hmm.
challenges or
Yeah.
complexity, but yes, there are quite some complexities and evolving set of challenges that we also face in the Philippines. I think I tried to mention one earlier, which is the fact that geographically, the Philippines is very fragmented. What does this mean for your supply chain? It almost definitely signifies high logistics cost. So when you're comparing versus maybe your sister sites in other countries and somebody is doing a benchmark, it's different because you have 7,000 islands plus
Mm.
or more, the fact that you have to use different modes to reach different consumer base, the fact that in some cases things are slow, there are so many disruptions happening. You have to find the ways and means to ensure that you are moving ahead of the curve. That's one. The second for me has been sometimes because you have to do a lot of things in terms of moving around. You need the port, whether it is for material importation for materials not available locally, or whether it's also for moving your products around. Congestions at the various ports, maybe the disport where you're probably taking the products to or at the main port. Regulatory complexities in some cases, delays in custom also poses other challenges. Obviously, I think one key thing that so many people will tell you about the Philippines is the high energy cost, which then means that you are not very productive when you compare maybe to other companies, or when you look at your competitors who are maybe bringing the products in from outside, like Vietnam. You are not very competitive because of high energy costs. It's the same for also your logistics, moving the product. High energy cost kind of drives your supply chain costs very high. Limited domestic supplier base is another issue. In cases where you also have suppliers who have the right capacities or capabilities, you tend to see that there is almost like a cartel. They are colluding very high prices, which doesn't make it very beneficial for supply chain. And fifth, I mentioned this because I've also heard in different quarters, shortage of talent and skill gap within the supply chain can also be an issue. For me personally, I think I'm blessed and endowed with a great team within supply chain. Obviously, also I had to introduce new people locally, but I mean, I have the team, but generally ensuring that there is a team that is capable driving the ownership, being developed along the line, is not something that is abundant here in the supply chain. So if I look at some of the complexities, I would say these are the five major complexities that are faced.
Wow, that's very interesting answers. Sorry. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. So, sustainability is top of mind for many industries, and cement is no exception, right? So, how is
Absolutely.
Holcim Philippines integrating sustainability into supply chain decisions, from sourcing to last mile delivery, and how do ESG goals fit into this framework?
Okay, I mean, the first thing to mention is that, sustainability sounds like a cliche where of recent everybody is mentioning it.
Mm-hmm.
For Holcim, sustainability has been a way of life. So if you look at our value statement, I mean, I was coming from Lafarge, Nigeria, a member of Holcim, sustainability was key, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Europe. Sustainability for us is a big deal. It's part of our value chain. Hence, we're very deliberate about it, whether in tracking it, in measuring it, and ensuring that we are driving sustainability related results. And I say that knowing that, for the supply chain, and from my personal experience, it's not no longer something that you just say. It's something that starts to become the way of survival going into the future. For example, about 5 years, 4 years ago, we were in a nightmarish situation with COVID and everything shut down. We had to find a way
Mm.
to break through on cost, otherwise, we were not surviving. The
Yeah, yeah.
one key thing that we did was sustainability in logistics, introducing, CNG at that time in Nigeria, one of the first of its kind, was breakthrough for us because we could reduce costs by over 20%, and it meant that in a very difficult period, we were surviving. Now, for Holcim generally, and if I look at the Philippines, then I look at 5 to 6 areas where sustainability is key for us and we drive. The first, from a supply chain procurement standpoint, is the sustainability in terms of supplier selection or sourcing, if you like. I mean, I'm only going to go source for you if I see that you follow the same values as me. You're driving sustainability, you're caring for the population unborn, and I select suppliers only based on those who have similar values. That's one.
Mm.
Second is in manufacturing. How am I ensuring that I'm recycling or reducing the carbon footprint, or ensuring that I'm reducing the usage of the limited resources that I have, caring for the next generation yet unborn. For example, alternative fuel and raw materials, utilization of biomass, utilization of other waste materials in terms of production. These are key areas that we look at from manufacturing standpoint. Obviously, I mentioned energy as well, green energy. Um, where you talk about the windmill, you talk about thermal energy. Gas is not a big deal because when you compare your utilization of diesel versus gas, maybe okay, you put them on different threshold. But in the Philippines, solar is big. We have abundant sun. So, and with the support of the government in terms of policies that are helping to drive green energy growth, Holcim is also keen in big time to some of this. We're already instituting agreements on solar in most of our plants as a basis, for sustainability drive. Another for me, which is very key into the supply chain vision, is green logistics,
Mm.
which has a lot to do with EV, electric trucks, whether it is for moving on the road or electric forklifts, utilizing within my depots, my warehouses, and different terminals. You know, CNG is no big deal here because of not non-availability of gas
Mm.
in abundance. But in the future also, we start to consider, can we do hydrogen trucks, which will use fuel cells to generate electricity from hydrogen, powering, resulting in zero tailpipe emissions. Things like this, so we are continuously evolving when it comes to sustainability.
Mm.
And I talked about carbon tracking, measuring it, monitoring it, reporting it. This is a must do within the whole team group on its own. And I like to think that we're actually ahead of the curve when it comes to sustainability as compared to major competitions around the world.
Mm.
And for us, we look at the community impact, we look at the social impact. What is the impact this is having on the current generation and obviously the generation yet unborn?
Mm. So, like it or not, sustainability is the must thing that you need to do and that you need to adapt in your
Ab-
supply chain and logistics.
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to be a way of life for you as
Mm-hmm.
we move into the future for sure.
Understand. Okay, interesting one. So let's move on to the next question. So cement is often seen as a traditional low tech industry, but that's changing fast. So how is digital transformation reshaping the way Holcim supply chain operates?
I mean, for me, digital transformation is very key
Mm-hmm.
in terms of driving supply chain results and values within Holcim. I think I mentioned earlier. So for us, we're being very strategic about it. We're being proactive as well. What can we do? Because digital helps you to optimize, it helps you to move away from manual, it helps you with your predictability,
Mm-hmm.
which then transcends into other things. So, for example, I own sales and operational planning process, whereby I link the strategy of the business into the final mile of sales to the final consumer, the supply chain, etc. So it is important within this process for me to be able to predict. One is to be able to forecast the customer need. So I'm going digital in terms of very advanced AI technology that looks at my historical demand, my peculiarities within the Philippines, and tells me exactly, what my demand is going to be going into the future. And how do I translate that into acquisition of raw material to ensure that I'm not wasting money keeping materials that I don't need, or keeping materials short such that my plant is shutting down and I can hardly just make ends meet. So digital is big deal. It's also about improving the lives of the people, ensuring that the manual work is set aside and people can do meaningful work with the little time that we have.
Understand. Wow. All right. So let's move on to the next question. Said, can you share a recent example of a supply chain disruption that Philippines faced, and how your team was able to respond or adapt to it?
I mean, so if I look at a recent example for me will be looking at the disruptions that we have, not, I mean, coming natural disruptions
Mm-hmm.
like major rain. So you look at, I have almost a 2 hour for the first time for me. I'm witnessing where you have 2 weeks consistent rain,
Mm-hmm.
and you are in a situation where for the supply chain you have to anyways move the product to the final consumers. The
Right.
consumers need the product,
Mm-hmm.
to make a living. They need to sell your product. I mean, so agility in the supply chain in this period is very key, because I'm not going to say, oh, it's raining now. I'm not able to be able to, supply to my consumers who
Mm-hmm.
need it. So, from a supply chain standpoint, it's about utilizing digital to predict. It's about optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I have digital now. I'm able to see what's going to happen. I'm also able to predict a bit what's going to happen and optimize within the limited hours that I have within the day to ensure that, again, I'm able to fulfill the need, the loading need, the offloading need. I'm also able to put some investments in place to ensure that I'm agile.
Mm-hmm.
Even with this disruption, I'm still able to load cement for my consumers. I'm able to utilize, instead of utilizing having 24 hours in the day, I'm just utilizing the packets where, for example, rain is not falling, to build my stock level, to load on the vessel. I'm doubling my efficiencies, giving these peculiarities at this time, and still meeting at least 80% of the need of my consumers. So for me, that's the one that comes to mind from a supply chain standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understand. So that's a big, you know, responsibility that you guys have to
Absolutely.
do. Yeah. So, okay, the next question is strong supplier and logistics relationships are essential. So, how is Holcim Philippines building those partnerships to mitigate risk in today's fragmented global supply environment?
I mean, the supplier partnership is one of the critical deliverables
Mm-hmm.
that any supply chain department has. And for me, it's if you do not have strategic partnerships, then you will fail.
Mm,
It's clear for me.
yeah,
So
true.
what we try to do is, whilst we maintain the um, the short-term goal of meeting my supply assurance, I also need to build the relationships that helps me to meet my long-term sustainable supply assurance.
Mm,
So for the short term is really about uh, ensuring that I deliver as per the promises that I made to my suppliers, but also that the supplier meet up the commitments that they make to me. Challenging them, also reviewing the performance together, whether from my end or from their end, and as well developing their own capability in areas where we think they can optimize. So in terms of safety, developing my suppliers such that lives are not at stake whilst they deliver my business results for me. In terms of their financials, helping them also to build the capability of their people is one way that we do it. Long term, supplier responsibility or supplier engagement,
mm,
which I help them to see my trajectory, see where I'm going. I help them to see the type of values that I have. Like I said earlier,
mm,
values in sustainability. Coming together to brainstorm on innovative ideas to deliver sustainable, value-driven innovation is one of the key things that we do, and we partner with viable suppliers who will stand with us on this. Raw material planning, for example, together, joint planning, in some cases, also supporting them with the global might that I have, in terms of negotiating raw materials, for example, with my low cost country teams, maybe located in India or China, bringing all of that together to help them see that we're in partnership, and it is a win-win scenario for me and for them.
mm, mm. So, yeah, maintaining the relationship is very crucial in every supply and logistics company, right? So, yeah. Alright, so Said, last but not least, looking toward the future, what skills or mindsets do you believe the next generation of supply chain leaders will need to thrive in industries like cement manufacturing?
I mean, for if I look at the future,
Mm,
especially for the Philippines, there are certain things that we need to do to ensure that we are surviving long term.
mm,
One of it is investing in digital.
mm,
Because we're in the Philippines, there's a lot of infrastructural development. How in the supply chain are we keen into all of that? Cloud-based ERPs, control towers, like I told you earlier, predictive analytics,
mm,
transport management system, to ensure that you are keening into that and you are ready
mm,
from a predictability standpoint to drive your supply chain to the next level. Also, there's a lot of risk, and globally, risks are not stopping.
mm,
So, how are you able to map out those risks, mitigate them, and form long-term sustainable partnership to ensure that you're driving value in the long term.
mm.
The other one I think we mentioned a lot is about sustainability.
Yeah.
Sustainability, like I said, is not longer a cliche.
Mm,
It is the way to live. Sustainability with value ensures that you are not only doing well for ESG, doing well for the environment, doing well for the next generation yet unborn, but you are also doing well right now for yourself in terms of cost, in terms of the bottom line. So sustainability is the way to go. Strengthening the local and regional networks, building relationships with local suppliers, third party logistics, in industrial parks. This is key as we move into the future. But one key one that I'm going to round off with that stays really pertinent to my heart,
mm,
is investing in talent and capabilities.
mm,
How are we ensuring that we are developing the people? I know it's easy for people who come and say, oh, okay, Philippines, I struggle with talent, but the job that we have is to ensure that we develop the people. We train them, we encourage them, and then, we ensure that they are engaged and motivated
mm,
to deliver value. What does that mean? For me, when I came on board here in the Philippines, one thing that I noticed is some of the people were disengaged because it looked like we didn't care about developing their capability for a long time. I mean, a couple of roles were vacant because people were resigning. So for me, I knew that developing their capability real time quickly was important, whilst also motivating them, helping them to see that they are doing meaningful work,
mm,
in the sense that how does the work that I do as an individual translates into the bottom line.
mm,
If I can see the direct correlation, trust me, my motivation automatically increases. It doesn't even have anything to do with whether or not you increase my salary
mm,
as a person. So that, and also how do we live, together as one big family, delivering exceptional results, having time still to spend with our family in a work life balance situation, going digital, taking off all those redundant works that are not necessary, such that you are building not just a motivated organization, but a high performing one.
mm.
And this is what I like to do everywhere I go to.
That was incredibly insightful, Said. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your perspective on the evolving supply chain landscape, especially in such a critical industry like cement. And to our listeners, we are excited to announce that Said will be also speaking live at the third annual Supply Chain and Logistics Summit Philippines 2025, happening in August 6 to 7 at the New World Makati Hotel, Manila. Now it's your chance to hear even more from this country's leading supply chain professionals and be part of the conversation shaping the future of logistics in the Philippines. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and leave us a comment. And don't forget to share this with your network. Till next time, bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saeed. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Bye.